All right, so here we are, 10, almost 11 years later, back at the encounter site. As much as the area up here has been torn up from winds and fire and everything else, I'm kind of surprised that the exact spot that it happened looks very similar to it did all those years ago. So what was going on is I was all camoed out. I had a rifle with me, and I was hiding behind this oak branch offshoot thing, and about 30-40 yards in front of us in the clearing there was one of those coyote calls that you stick in the ground, and you press a button remotely and it makes like wounded rabbit call, hurt calf call, makes a bunch of different noises. So I was crouched down, I was in here, I had my rifle like this, it was an AR-15, and we were hunting coyotes. I'm not a big coyote hunter, but I went with my brother-in-law, who, pick it up, he was hiding kind of behind these rocks over here, about, I don't know, 15, 20 feet from where I am, and he was operating all the calls. And it had, you can see the clearing out there past those rocks, is where the call was, and then we had this thing that looked like a foxtail on a little motor, and it bounced around, and it looked like a piece of fur moving to attract a predator attention. That combined with the predator call, and it was making god-awful shrieking noises like those calls do, and I could just remember it echoing all through these canyons. And it was 6, 7 at night. It was, I believe, in April. No, it wasn't quite that late. It was more like 5 or something. It was right before dusk we came up, because that's when coyotes come out. And you can't hunt after sundown in California. So we knew we'd maybe have, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour out here or something. And I just remember sitting here with this predator call thinking, wow, predator call. What if we call in some kind of predator? Like, what if we, not a coyote, but what if we call in a mountain lion or a bear or something like that? And as I'm sitting here, if you want to tilt the camera, you can kind of see back behind over here, there's a lot of tree cover and a lot of foliage and rocks, and the hill kind of gradually drops off on the other side. So if something was going to sneak up on us, I guess they could. There's still a lot of leaf fall on the ground, so walking through here, even if you're trying to be super quiet, is going to be kind of noisy. So I'm sitting here with the rifle and posted up. It's getting dark, it's getting twilight, we're just about to wrap it up. And I kept hearing something behind me. At that time of night, the squirrels they kind of go to bed, the birds stop chirping, so the obvious small stuff that makes noise starts to go away at that time. I didn't really pay any attention, I just thought it was a squirrel. Then, right about that moment, I hear crash coming through the trees. A big old rock about this big just barely misses my head, crashes down and lands down here. Now, I've come back before to try to find the exact rock, and I don't know, it's 10 years, it's probably under leaf litter, or it got picked up, or it rolled downhill, or something. I can't find a rock, but it was football size, but not football shape. It was a good size rock. And I immediately popped up and turned to Ben, and I said, "What was that?" He said, "Oh, that was a coyote." And I was like, "What do you mean it was a coyote?" He said, "Well, I don't know what it was, but something moved over there by you." And I'm like, "It was a rock got thrown at me." He was like, "Well, I don't think it was a rock," but by this point, he's already hopping out from his position and he's taken off. And I'm like, it kind of, whatever it was scared him, and I was just more confused and scared. And I've kind of got my AR-15, it's got a flashlight mounted on it. I'm looking all around, I don't see anything. It was a dumpy flashlight, it wasn't a very good one. And I'm kind of looking, peering through here, I don't really see anything. So we go out and we pick up our the call and the little thing that bounces around for movement, and we take off going back up the road, and we're going at a really swift pace. And at this point, it went from dusk to like dark really fast. The sun must have just dropped behind a ridge or something, because it was getting to the point where you could kind of navigate without a flashlight, but you really kind of needed a flashlight. And on the way out, something tailed us the whole way out. It sounded like 2 feet following us. And we kept turning around with our flashlights and looking behind us, and we'd take a few more steps, and we'd stop, and we'd maybe hear 1 or 2 steps, and we'd turn around, and we could never really see anything. And at the time, I was aware of Bigfoot, I knew about Bigfoot, but I wasn't really into it. It didn't really occur to me what was going on until years later, when I was like, wow, I think that was a Bigfoot encounter. No human being, I've never found anything illegal going on up here, and I've tromped around a lot. There were no other cars parked at the fire road. There's no other really way up here that night. So if it was a human being, you'd have to be pretty ballsy to throw a rock at one guy with a 30-06 rifle and the other guy with an AR-15. You don't just throw rocks at people, especially when they're heavily armed. And mountain lions, bears don't throw rocks, and especially don't sound like they're on 2 feet following you out. And later on that night, whether it's connected or not, back at the property at my father-in-law's house, about 200 yards off in the ridge line, we saw a glowing orb going through. And to drive to this spot from my father-in-law's place is 15-20 minute drive, but as the crow flies, it's actually really pretty close. So something could just go down the hill and get to where we were. We saw an orb of light going through the trees that night. It was just a very bizarre thing, and it wasn't until years later when I started connecting everything that, wow, we saw a weird orb of light. We had a rock thrown at us. It was more than likely Bigfoot behavior. They've been known to throw rocks. It's very classic. You know, my guess, my hypothesis, if you will, is that we were out here. We set up a predator call. This Sasquatch probably showed up, saw a hunter, saw guns, and was just like, you guys need to get out of here, and scared us off. And it worked. Yeah, what the orb of light was, I don't know, but it was just another strange phenomenon that happened this trip. Like I've said before, this is close to Battle Mountain, which is an area where a cavalry battle happened and they slaughtered a bunch of Native Americans. So who knows what kind of spirits and ghosts and stuff are up here. And pretty much all woods at some point have some kind of creepy stuff going on. So yeah, and I always ask myself, do I think Sasquatch are still here now? And from coming up here from years and years, when we've had weird stuff happen to us on the property, at the porch, driving around, weird howls, noises, stuff disturbed around the property, half-burned fire logs stolen, all the weird shit, it seems to me that it's very seasonal, and I think they're very migratory. I think certain areas in California and other places, they probably have a year-round population. But it seems like either in early spring or fall is when we tend to get the most action. Dead of summer, dead of winter, not much seems to happen. So I don't know if they're passing through here to go farther up to where it's cooler in the summer, in the spring, or if they're moving back down to lower elevations in the fall, and that's why we kind of have that, like we're kind of a waypoint. But there's definitely birds, squirrels. With trail cameras, we've seen mountain lions, we've seen bears, there's tons of deer up here. There's plenty of protein sources, there's plenty of berries and acorns. And they put salt licks out for the cows. They have troughs out for the cows for water. So yeah, I think they could definitely make a living, and I think they're here, and you're never going to know when they're here or not. So yeah, it's as much as the rest of the road in this area has changed, which we're going to show you in the video. The exact spot where it happened looks almost identical. I mean, in April there was a few more leaves, but you know, as far as I can tell, it's very, very similar, which is kind of nice to see because there's so many great oak trees and things that have not made it through the years up here. So that's pretty much it. The revisit of the encounter of the site of my first encounter, and kind of a walkthrough of it. So here's where the bush I was crouched behind, and I wanted to give you guys a little more in-depth look of the area behind me. Now there's new green vegetation growing in and cow pies, but there is still leaf litter underneath it. So I guess if you're one of the forest ninjas of Sasquatch, you could probably get through here quietly. And I guess there are rocks and things that you could step on. But yeah, there's plenty of areas where they could just walk up, have a little cover, walk up, have a little cover, and get close enough until they could probably come up here and see my back over there and then Ben's back over there and find a healthy sized rock around here, or take it with them, who knows, throw it, and then they could do almost like a special forces retreat where you just kind of like, you could get behind some cover and ascend down to the hill to where you could still keep an eye on us, but only like maybe your head is exposed or something like that. They could definitely have all sorts of escape routes back through here. So certainly kind of a neat spot besides all that. So this is something I never noticed before, about a couple hundred yards from my location encounter. Teresa Ann Paulman, July 31st, 1962 to July 18th, 2015. Some kind of memorial. It is a little bit, maybe this was her spot and she wanted a view or something, so they put this here. I mean, it is a pretty spot, but this is also Battle Mountain, where the cavalry battle happened in the 1890s. Creepy stuff. So where that large stump is there, used to be a massively huge oak tree that provided a lot of shade, and it got killed in the big windstorm. And it's been thinned out so much. And then a couple years ago we had fires through here, so this place is so much different than it used to be. Up this hill through there, we're gonna go up there, but that's where my encounter happened, just to give you guys a little perspective, and we'll walk through it and see how much it's changed up there. This is for the cattle grazing and all that kind of stuff. You'll be hiking up here and you'll hear something crash through the bushes and you're like, ah, it's a big cow. So it happens. So here's the entrance down the fire road to the location, probably about half mile to the location of my first encounter. It has changed so much in 10, 11 years. It used to be so thick and lush and so many trees and canopy, and 3 or 4 years ago we had like a 100-year storm. We had a really big snowstorm, really high velocity winds, and they knocked all these trees out. So the Forest Service went through and cleaned a lot of it out and cleaned it all up. And this land also gets used for grazing land with cows and all that other stuff too. But it just looks so completely different up here. It's changed so much. A lot of the big oak trees and kind of landmark things have changed. The altitude is about 3,700 feet, 4,000 feet. There's still some patches of snow. We're in the Southern Sierras near Balch Park.